Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday, and that means it is time for Sunday Club, a weekly Ruby on Rails live stream where each week we do some Rails coding and try and build an application together. And the application we are working on is an events registration application. We're hoping to specialize in people registering for teams and group events and things like that because it throws up some interesting modeling problems. Welcome along. If you haven't seen the stream before, not a huge amount of follow-up, so hopefully we're going to dive straight into the code. But one bit of update is that there isn't going to be a stream next Sunday. I am on holiday. I'm away. And so I will be in the sunshine next to a pool, sipping on a cocktail or something like that. You'll have to make do without me. Yeah, so there's no stream next week, but I'll try and do something the week after. And also, I still haven't, I haven't reached out to Sam about pairing again on the stream, but I'll try and do that for the week that I get back. Things have been a bit hectic around here lately. All right, that's it. That's the only update. Let's get into the stream proper. Let's just jump straight into where we were last week because we were looking at CSS Grid, which was very exciting. I very much enjoyed this because it allowed us to do exactly what we want to do. And what we wanted to do was have these this layout here change correctly as we went from narrow to wider viewports. So what we have is 3 areas of content. We have this image here, we have this event title and call to action button here. So these are, this text and this button are in the same kind of component, I guess. And then we have this event description. And so we want them to do exactly what they're doing here, which is go image, title and button description. And then as we got to wider viewports, we wanted the description, the title and the button to jump over to the right-hand side, but we wanted the description to stay neatly tucked underneath the image as we move to a 2-column layout. And CSS Grid allowed us to do that perfectly, which CSS Flexbox, we potentially could have got there, but I think we would have had to do a bit more fiddling around, whereas this was what that API was designed for, as I understand it. And so what this allows us to do is allow this this information here to get longer and longer. So let's jump over to our sketch doc and see the sort of thing that we could have in there, you know, the time of the event. Let's zoom in on that. Like the time of the event, share and save buttons, organizer details, all of that stuff can all then get as long as we like. And the page will react accordingly, which is great. All right, let's start to tidy some of this stuff up then. So in the description, I haven't really got any specific goals that we want to accomplish today, but let's tidy a bunch of stuff up. So let's start by taking a look at what we added to our Git commit. So let's close this half. So we added, Active Storage had added some CSS for figure and image elements to something within Rails. There was some default behavior there, I think. Oh, it was a partial within Active Storage, I think, that set some values. So we just overrode those. We then added this CSS file. And I mentioned last week that the naming here is deliberately not what we wanted. So the idea being like, what we're looking at there is an event that people can register for. So I called it event-layout on the assumption that we would actually want to use that layout for more than one page, but we don't know that yet, so we don't know what to name it. So I just named it something generic, and then we can kind of come back and rename it more appropriately as we have more pages, because we're just in that kind of early phase here. And then this is us adding the appropriate classes to the content that was already on the page, which is like what we've just been looking at, the image and the description and the button and stuff like that. All right, so let's start to commit some of this stuff. So let's just pop some comments here. So this was added. I don't usually put a lot of comments in code because I prefer to use the commit messages in general. Like it's kind of contextual always, but CSS I find pretty useful sometimes to be like, hey, what is this attempting to accomplish? Because usually if you're using like BEM or SAS modules or something like that, we've probably solved on a technical level like cascade issues. So if you're having to put something in to deal with cascade issues, it's usually for a specific reason. Active storage CSS. There may be a way to handle this globally, but I think this is our as we use images for the first time, this is an initial first, not a guess, but first attempt. Okay, and then I'm just going to commit that on its own, so we can come back and rebase this stuff. So add CSS to restrict max width. Active storage images. I'm actually just going to copy that comment over, but the reason I'm putting it in both places is just in case the CSS gets moved around a bunch. That'll do for that. So that's committed, that's good. All right, do we want to commit this yet, or should we go and experiment with trying to get some of this put into components or things like this? So we've got this idea of the event details. That's our title and button and things like that. We've got this idea of a header. We have got... That was about it. Everything else... Oh, yeah, that was it. Everything else just flowed from there. We didn't actually have to specify the behavior of the rest. So do we want to stay on this page, or should we look to move to the actual purchasing process? Let's move to this as well, because we've got this in our sketch document. So this is the next step. So you click on book tickets, and eventually you're going to move to a page like this, which is where you can select quantities of ticket types, but we don't have the concept of ticket types yet. So we're just going to move you straight to this page here. So we can start to build out some of this work here. Let's do this one next. So let's commit this as a work in progress commit. It's a bit bigger to see on the stream. And so add initial layout to event page. This is an initial rough layout. However, it does use the CSS. It does use CSS grid. To accomplish the layout changes we want with the event description wrapping underneath the event image on wider viewports. Okay, that'll do for that commit. So everything should be up to date. Oh, great. What's the changes in that? Oh, just some spaces. Okay, fine. that's annoying. Is it git commit -- amend? Yeah, I think that just adds it to the previous commit, right? Or should I not stage those? Okay, let me try that again. There we go. Oh. What's the one I'm looking for? Show, not view. Cool. All right, so what is this view then? So this is /orders/new, and then we pass in the event and the organization that we're trying to buy the ticket for. And so we go from a page that's got some formatting to a page that has got none. We have got sort of a rough sketch layout for what we want to do. All right, so let's tackle this idea of page layout, I guess. So I'm wondering how flexible we need to build this. And I think for initially, the answer is none. So like the answer is not very flexible because we can just change the component for each page that we visit. So there are 2 pages here that have a 1-column design. And then as you go further through the process, I'm just staying at this zoomed out level because it doesn't really matter too much what's going on in here in the details. We've got this 2-column layout here. And what I was sort of wondering was, could we have one component that you just pass multiple things into? But I'm not sure we need that for now. So let's... yeah, so to sort of suggest that all our single column layouts are the same size. Is there a world in which we have like layout components, like in a specific subdirectory called layout? And so you know that they're not performing any formatting or the actual, they don't make the page look any different. And is there any advantage to do that? I suppose the advantage is that then you're not trying to like do find alls on CSS classes or anything like that as you change the behavior. So what I'm thinking is something like, and again, I've never used view component at scale, so I have no idea the best way to do this, but is it something like, and you sort of want to indicate that that's the layout of the whole page, right? Like you don't want to suddenly chuck a single column layout halfway down. You're trying to indicate that this is what this page should be. So is it like a page layout component? Is that a thing? I think, should this be called page layouts? Let's just stick with layouts for now. Might be barking right up the wrong tree with all of this. Yeah, might be barking up the wrong tree with all of this. Okay, so let's do the HTML here. So all we've basically got is single column layout. That's it. Okay. Okay. So then let's do what we did before and have and here, then we have our SAS. Okay, so this just when I was looking at the CSS Grid API stuff, there was some like indications that you should use it over other ones because it has so CSS Grid page performance benefits. So what I'm trying to ask is like, should I just be using CSS Grid for even for a single column simple layout because of something to do with performance? And I don't know enough about this, but I just read it while I was looking last week at the CSS Grid stuff. This looks very well sourced and has lots of links to things. But I sort of just want a one-liner that just says, yeah, use this. Grid layout. CSS grid.io. The golden rule for deciding to use grid or flexbox. If you need to lay out the elements in one direction, you can use flexbox. If you need to control the elements in two directions, better use grid. Right, so I only need to go in one direction, but I think there's a... What I thought those articles last week were saying is there is some sort of layout benefit for the browser to render CSS Grid. Maybe that's not a thing. Okay, choice. They all start at like, what is a grid? Like we covered that last week. I'm just skimming through these really quickly. I just really want... I suppose the other advantage of using it is that if you then want to add another column, at least it is easier. Although we've named the component single layout column, so or single column layout. Any performance-y style things. All right, let's just try doing it with as a single grid. So I've already forgotten. I've already forgotten everything about CSS Grid that we learned last week. Let's go back to that CSS tricks grid thing. Oh, these links are broken. Okay. Cool. Okay, so display grid. And we want one column, and it has... Does that define the padding on the left and right and stuff as the gaps, or is that only... That's only internal, isn't it? I think we still have padding and margin and stuff for the outside. So in here we can just say grid template columns. gonna have to go back to the actual page itself because it had all the values in it. Yeah, and I've already forgotten. So one FR is like just fill up all the space, right? And then here we can just do div and that. Then in here, oh my god, I haven't used view component for a little while. Is it yield and you spit everything out? Or do you not need that? Oh god, I haven't used any of this stuff in a few weeks. Where are the wrapping ones that we've used? Site nav. I thought we did have ones that wrapped stuff that you passed in. These all specify their content really specifically. Let's just look through this thing for yield. No, only the one I've just written. Man, if you don't do something for a few weeks, view components Rails yield. Yeah, I mean, if you just don't do something for a few weeks, you're so... Oh, I see. So you don't even need to... Oh, okay. So then you pass hello world. Oh, content. That's it. Content. Right. It's not yield. Content view to pass to a view command as a block is captured and assigned to the content accessor. Okay, I wonder if yield would get you the same thing. Okay, so that's that one, and so we presumably need to define a class for this as well. And this is single column layout component. Oh, and they inherit from stuff, don't they? View component base. Oh, actually, this is layouts. I put plural there, but maybe I mean singular. Events, attendees. Well, that's the name of a model, though. Navbar, orders. Let's call it layout. Okay, and then that inherits from view component base. And doesn't need anything, so can we just do that? Do we even need this? Let's see if we can then use it. So what page are we on? We were on views, orders, new. And let's put a box around something so we can see it. Let's say that the outline is 1 pixel. It's going to be salmon colored because that was at the top of the list. We can go back to new, and then we can do render layout single view. No, single column. I've already forgotten the name of it. Layout. Oh, maybe we actually don't need layout in there because it's within the layout namespace actually. All right, does that give us a pink box on this page? Or do we get an error? Okay, we get nothing. We have this thing called single column layout, which means that it is getting, and we have an outline. Oh, I see, but is it just that it's not got anything assigned to it? So that has worked. Where is it? Oh, did I just not write solid on the border? There we go. Okay, it's there. Great. So we can say width. Oh, is width implied? If I do that, yeah, width's implied for the table. Okay, great. So let's say that then works. Is there any advantage? So what I was thinking of, like, if it was a Flexbox container, I would set the max width to whatever I wanted this to be. So how wide is this? This is just like 550 arbitrarily, I think. So let's say it's 550. And then just set margin left and margin right as auto. Is there any advantage to actually, instead of doing that, defining a 3-column layout? And then defining so that's a column, that's a column, and that's a column. And this one is the only one with a fixed max width. Just can't see any advantage of that. So what I'm talking about here is, like, let's say we do this. We could sort of... Because that sort of leaves it dependent on a parent container to do stuff, could still do stuff to it. Whereas if it was a grid with 3 columns, it would always work, I guess. All right, that has totally... not worked. Has this broken it? Because you have to do the root thing. Still learning this stuff. Okay, so there's variables there. Can you define variables here as well? When I get back off holiday, we've got to do the thing where we strip Webpack out of here as well. Okay, cool. So that is doing what we expect to see. So now if we pull everything from here into here, and this as well, we should see everything in the middle of the page. Okay. Do you get any padding with it? No. Okay, so we would still need to define some sort of... Because this could then be sort of like a global column width or something like that. I mean, it could just be... Yeah, definitely want to get Webpack out of here when we are done. Right, and we should then be... But we should be able to turn that into... Let's get close to... Some of these are down now. In here, this could now be an H1. But we had on our previous page we were working on... Oh no, it was just H1. We didn't have to give it a class or anything? I think we probably do want to give those a class or make a component called page heading or something like that. Okay. And we don't want to call it new order, but let's come so I think we're getting to this. Okay, so let's start swapping some of these out. So this one can have class button and button primary, because primary uses a bunch of the bootstrap things, so that's nice. This is actually hidden, because we don't need to see that. I don't think we need to question whether we need it there at all. And then rather than owner name, this can be, is it just label this one, or is it input HTML then label? Just see whether that changes to test. Yeah, okay, it does. So here we could have great. Okay, so we want to adjust how we're using simple form, and we can adjust the HTML that gets put out for a default form form field, form control as they put it. So we can do that in a second, because we want them all to start to look a bit better, I think. So they're a bit, that's actually the default zooming, so they're a bit small, and we also want them to have the form-control CSS class, which we get from Primer, the CSS library that we're using from GitHub. So what's in the sketch file for this? So what we've actually got is this thing at the top, the input default value as string. Input default value as string. This one, you mean? So we can, so we want this section at the top. So we'll come back to those and get those formatted, but we want to come back to this section at the top. So at the top of the booking journey, we have this thing, and it is consistent information about the thing that you were in the purchasing flow for. So that can be like a separate component for us. And hello in the chat, by the way. Sorry, I was reading that. It said hello, input default value is string, but hello. It's lovely to see you on this lovely Sunday morning. Let's close some of these tabs back to CSS Grid, because I don't really understand whether we're supposed to be using it or not. So we don't need this to say new order. What we actually need is a component that shows the event information. So let's commit what we've got here. Let's get rid of all of this stuff and say, right, this new component can stay. And we don't know the pros and cons of adding layout components. Maybe that's a bad idea to name them as layout components. Maybe they should be done another way, but introduce single column layout component. Let's do this in here actually. Oh, on this as string, because I'm using Postgres and I've stored them as text values, it thinks that they're going to be text areas by default. So I think I need to change a config somewhere to say that. So if I take that out, it will show them text areas rather than strings. So I don't know a better way to, I haven't set a default or anything like that for text fields to come as strings. I can presumably configure that somewhere in simple form. But I think that's why that was there from the initial composition, I think. If we take them out, they'll turn into text areas. That could be totally the wrong way to approach that. So if you have any guidance on that, that's very appreciated. So we are going to introduce this single column layout component, and we are going to say we're not sure whether / how to handle page layouts in view component. So this is a first rough Best guess. Again, that's the commit message. So it's work in progress. We're going to come back and rebase that before it can go in. So that's fine. All right, let's do a nice little let's do a component that we do know is going to be pretty cool. So right. So we have a view component folder called admin and then events. But in my mind, because we've namespaced it as admin, anything that would be not admin facing would not go in there. So instead, we would want, I think, an events folder here as well, because what this represents in the sketch file is like an event summary. Although this only shows in the order flow at the moment because we don't know where else it's going to go. So is this actually something that lives in the... Is this like an order summary component rather than an event summary component? Or is there any assumption that we would show this anywhere else? We don't know that yet because we don't have it. So I think it's only going to contain event information at the moment based on what we know. So let's call it... Let's do a best guess at some naming because we're always going to get it wrong first time anyway. And we're going to call this an event. Yeah, let's just call this an event summary component. We don't know. Like that's going to be an awful name long term because everywhere in an event registration application, you're going to have summaries of events like that. There's going to be a million of them. But is this one going to become the order header component, the order event summary component, the order event header summary component, the or something completely random? We don't know, and I don't think it really matters right now. So let's just get it going, and we can rename it later. Like because we know we're only going to have a single API for it. I think that's the point of the using the view component library. So we're going to have .html, and we're going to have .this. Okay. So just to clarify what's happening here, I think that at the moment, all of our SAS files for all of our components are being read by Webpack and produced in a global style sheet, even though we're nesting them next to the component. There's no world in which this is actually dynamically generating CSS and only rendering it out on that page for that where that component is rendered, which is more like SAS modules you can do for React stuff, where like it dynamically generates the CSS just for the page you're rendering. So we're not doing that in case. I was checking. I was like, oh, that'd be cool if that's what's happening, but I don't think that is what's happening. So this is, oh no, not HTML. This can be event and we don't need component on the class name. Okay, we've got event summary as our class name. Let's create that and give it an outline that we can see. Oops. I'll just make it really bright blue just so we can see it. And let's tell it to be full width so we can see it. So here we then have event summary component, and that inherits from the same thing that everything else does. Oops, which is this one. I need to get my Rubocop thing set up so I can doing all of the like all of this stuff properly. Got to get that done. So, well, let's leave that because we don't need anything yet. We haven't added any content, but we can put in here test. So let's see if we can then see that. So we then have event summary component should now exist in our world. And so on the page that we've been working on, which is the new order page, we can go through and put in, we can just copy this one. Don't do, I don't think. And that it? Nope. Layout. Okay, so it's not inside the layout. Oh, actually, I did forget to namespace it though. It is inside events. And I think I forgot to namespace the class as well. Again, I don't know if this namespacing is correct, if this is a good or bad idea. Never used view component at scale, so might be an awful idea. But I think this one then might at least work. And again, if it is a massive mistake, and we can just change it later, I hope. So there's test. That's from our view component, which is here. Amazing. So we can take out a new order because we don't need that anymore. All right. What is in here? This was a quick and dirty design. So apparently the event name is in here twice. But what we have is the event image, the event name, and like a time. We would need probably like the to and the from, or like the starts at and the ends at, and the event name. That'll do for now. Let's sort of go with that. So let's get the event title set up, which means that for an event summary to work, we are going to want an event. No, we're not going to want an event. If you're just going to use a few attributes, just pass the attributes. That was from the docs, the view component docs, and it was only like once you get past 3, do you pass the whole object. We're going to be at 3 pretty quickly. I'm tempted to say that actually might be worth passing the name through, the whole event through, because we'll have starts at, ends at, name, image. What is some of the other stuff on the event page itself? Nothing yet. Organizer detail, organizer name would probably be in that here as well, potentially. You would want the path. You'd probably want to have potentially a link out to it, to the event page or something. Maybe not if you don't want people to leave the checkout. I don't even know how you would do the image. Would you do, what would you pass through the just the whole field? So you could have event name, event, oh, what's that called? The logo? Profile photo? Okay. So by only passing through a few things, we're just building a really explicit API for that component. Okay, let's start by being really strict. We don't know what we don't know what we need yet, so there's no point in going crazy. Maybe we could add a couple more and it wouldn't get too painful. So then in here, we could say and name. That could be inside an H1. And then when we are actually rendering it, we would need event name. Do we have an event here? I genuinely have no idea. Event orders controller. Set organization, set event from slug. Yes, we have an at event. Okay, great. So it would be at event.name. So does that then work? Oh, we can default these to nil, can't we? Just for now. Doing something. Webpack's doing a thing. Okay, and the event is called new event, which is actually really confusing. So can we change this? Can we change it to like family fun run 2022? Right, okay, so that makes it more obvious what's happening there. Okay, great. So we want, so let's take event profile off of having a default and say we want that every time. And so here we can do profile photo 2. Now, how do we, I've already forgotten what the active storage thing is. So this must show on the event show page. And I don't think it's inside a component, so I think we just render it. So we do render active storage blob, blah, 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 blob. Okay. Maybe that then. So it's going to be on the left initially. And we'll need to work out how we're going to handle this in a responsive layout. But for now, let's chuck that in there. And in here, we're just going to chuck event. Oops. Event profile photo. So we're just passing the whole of that field through. And an image of some sort is going to get rendered. Probably massive if it works. Missing keyword event profile photo. Did I not? Is there a typo in what I called it? Event profile photo. Event. I just called it event name. Okay, fine. Great. Okay, so giant image. We can resize that in a minute. That's good. So this is... Okay, and it's always spitting out a little caption as well. So we potentially want to change that blob, the active storage, the partial active storage is using for those. That could just be not there, basically. Then we got the title, and what was the other one we had? Starts at. Event starts at. We can take that off from nil. And I don't know why we're doing starts at and not ends at, but it's just because of what's it actually called on the event. It's called starts at. Yeah. Oops. And oh no, we don't want that. We want event starts at, not event dot starts at. Of course, we've just taken that nil off of there. Event starts at, and it won't have any formatting. Presumably, it'll just be a UTC timestamp or something. Yep. Okay, great. So it looks rough, but we've got all the content that we said we would have from our sketch layout. Now, what we want to do is fix how this looks first. So we want to accomplish 3 things. We want to get this stuff out of the active storage blob. So we probably need to adjust that that partial because it's just got it's the default one that came with active storage. So we can just make it so that it doesn't show with the caption initially, and maybe have like 2 partials, or that you have to pass in an additional attribute to get that to show or something like that. Then we want it to have the image go to the left. And probably always stay there. Like it's just represent, like this isn't the event page where we want it to stay nice and big and be branded. Like at the top of, on a really narrow viewport, we want the name of the event to be the thing. And we actually don't want the profile image to really overtake it, because this is what you're trying to get to, which is all the fields you're trying to fill in. So we're going to reformat this, get the image on the left-hand side. And sort of just stay that way all the way up. I don't think we need much more than a flex box here, really. Because it's always logo on the left, everything else on the right, and everything else always aligned together in my mind. Like that would be the easiest layout for that. So nothing then appears under this image here, and we don't really want to allow this to extend particularly. Let's do that then. So we only really want this and the CSS for it, so we can pop those here. So what we want is the event summary can be display flex, I think. And then in here, this can be event summary. Profile photo. Do the whole thing. And this flex direction is always going to be row. And here we want, just call that event details, and everything else can live in that one. I don't even know if that actually needs a CSS class because it's just everything else. If we do, it would be to give that one like a flex grow, but if this one is a fixed, so if this one is flex grow 1 but max width, whatever this size is, unless it's a percentage that we give it, that is currently, what wide is that? 150 pixels. God, Webpack takes its time on this stuff. Yeah, I think when I get back off holiday, we'll really look to remove that. Okay, great. So this is our left-hand side. And then as we collapse it down, we're just going to want, I've got loads of padding and spacing and stuff in it. Oh, yeah. It'd be good to look up how other apps handle, like, are they just not using the active storage blob partial? Are there lots of blobs in that? Are there lots of partials in that directory? No, active storage blob. So this is like if it has a caption, if it responds to a caption method, then show it. It would sort of be good if we, I don't know if there's a need to add any more, if you could just like make this so if it was like if What's the local assignment API for partials? Rails, partials, locals. Locals. Wait, how do you actually read locals? Yeah, I want to set them, but I just want to see how you read them. Local variables, locals. Oh, you can just read them as if they're... I thought I remember like... Oh yeah, I thought this is what I'm remembering. Local assigns full. So what's to pass a local variable to a partial in only specific cases? Use the local assigns. Ah, okay, maybe that's what I'm looking for. So does locals imply you can pass local variables to partials, making them more powerful? For example, you can use this technique to reduce duplication, blah, 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 blah. So does it now need those, whereas in fact local assigns will allow it to be nil? This way it's possible to use the partial without the need to declare all local variables. Right, that's what I'm looking for. So I want local assigns. If local assigns show caption. So that should now disappear from this view here. Great, it does. And we should be able to bring it back if we want in here by doing locals show caption true. That does not work. Have I got that? Have I got that API wrong? Or have I cocked it up? I just want to check I'm not going to break this. It will then be removed, but if I can't actually add it back. Is it not locals? What was it? Locals zone render. Locals render blah blah blah. Show caption is true. Local assign show caption. Is it because blob has to go within there as well? Nope, broke that. Oh, is it because you can't pass? Does everything have to go in like that? Can you mix local assigns and locals? Yeah, I wonder if you can't pass both. Like this is passing in blob, which is like the object that that partial cares about. Can you then not pass locals as well, is what I'm wondering. Partials, locals, and object. This is one versus the other. A few of these questions like one versus the other, so I'm assuming you can't do both. Right, with the shorthand syntax, Rails will ignore the locals variables. There's more in this in Rails code. So if you want to pass in extra options to the render, you have to specify partial. Oh, okay. So I see. So is it like this? I have to change the call. Yes. Okay, great. So now if I remove this, it's gone. Okay, great. So that's just about how. Right. Let me go back a step to say what actually happened there. So when you're using a partial, my understanding of what I've just read is that you can pass a shorthand syntax, which is what we started with originally. So let me go all the way back and take out the locals altogether. This is the shorthand syntax. You don't need. It knows that this is going to be the partial, so you don't need to put partial : space, and it accepts an object as its argument and is like, great, I'll accept that. When you're using the shorthand syntax here, which gives you the shortest possible line to render the partial, you don't need to. You then can't specify more local variables to the partial, because if you pass in a locals hash, it won't read them. So we passed in locals show caption true, which was the variable we had added into the partial to decide on whether or not to render that caption out, and it wouldn't read it. It doesn't care anymore because it's using the shorthand syntax. We had to specify the partial colon space here, and that tells it that, oh, okay, great. Well, I need to read this in all of the arguments to render here. So it gives you partial, and then I moved the shorthand syntax into the locals hash. So that was the blob. I've moved into it alongside show caption true. So what we've done in the partial here will work. We just have to change the calling code in order to pass this value in, because we can't use the shorthand syntax, which is fine. We can still then use the shorthand syntax because we actually don't need that to be turned on. We actually want it turned off by default. So what we've got here still works for us. We actually don't care. What we were testing there is that we could optionally turn it off, which is great. So we have local. We have the caption turned off, and in here we then have all this stuff on attachment, which we can hopefully, presumably, find somewhere. Great, action. Is that where this is all coming from? Where's this styling coming from on attachment? Oh, it's coming from figure, which is coming from normalize.css, which is something I added. Is that true? Or is it normalize.css? I have no memory of adding that, but let's just see if that's in our... Okay, where's that coming from then? Is that coming from primer? Tricks. Bit more stuff in here. The one called normalize in here. Just scrolling really quickly to see if I can find normalize. Yes. Okay, so it's coming from here. And this is all a list of this must all be primer CSS stuff. Says action list, heading sizes, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. So we sort of just need to override it back again in our global. Is there any reason we'd need figure to have so much spacing? Do we need figure at all? Is that good accessibility wise? Using figure with images HTML. figure with optional capture element. So like, is that, what's the pro versus con of doing this versus just putting an image out, other than making it a single component? Like, could we do, could we do this? Just to keep everything active storage related in the same place. Sort of wondering if we can sort of just chuck the option to do that, but make the default just showing the image without any CSS stuff. So that would presumably just give us an image output, which then no longer matches our global one that we added earlier. That's a work in progress, so we could take that back out. So that can, if you go back to global, wherever that was, we could then just add like, well, that could stay, but you could also have this. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what other people do with their active storage partials, whether they do it at all. Maybe they always do their own logical component. Like maybe we should move this out to a view component anyway, and it shouldn't be calling a partial, which actually makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm not going to tackle that right now. So we've got that working. Albeit a little bit clunky. Let's just commit some of this stuff. Update blob partial, active storage blob partial. The default partial came with some opinionated HTML. We think we only need it to output an image tag at this stage, but have added local variable options in case we want to use the default HTML in the future. This should probably all be in a view component anyway. I like writing whip commits because they're about a million times faster than writing real ones that people are going to need to rely on. All right. Cool. So got ourselves a picture. Now we can actually see how this does change the layout here. So here at these smaller screen sizes, we only really want this to be like percentage. Like how narrow is that? You used to get like a little, I wonder if there's a setting somewhere. You used to actually get a little thing where it would show you the sizes as it Did it toggle rulers? It would show you the size as it changed the size. I don't know where that is though, as a setting. It was really helpful. Okay. Put the rulers on though. Oops. Okay, so that's 300. Okay, now you get the sizes. Okay, so you have to toggle the rulers on here. So what's 320 is like the old school iPhone one, I guess. So there we could have... Oh, no, wrong one. This one, this one, this one, this one. Yeah, we haven't got a grid. Oh, maybe we have got a grid system inside. Inside Primer, but I can't remember it. So at this point, let's put this in. And say... yeah, because we go back to the fact that we haven't got the CSS variables available to us. So I was talking about moving Primer from just a library that's been pre-compiled in to actually compiling it here so we could play with the Sass variables. I don't know what the feasibility of that is. Let's say in here... Oh, no, let's use the... We did one of these recently, didn't we? Oh no, I did just hard code it. Okay, let's just put 768 there as well then. And this can change. This can then stay. Again, we probably want a global variable for like default paddings and stuff. Oh, I think there already is one, but I've already forgotten what it is. Got to just spend ages learning. That can then just become width auto because it will have bumped into the max one at that point, I guess. Not quite sure what I've done there. I'm not sure it's right. Definitely broke that pretty heavily. Oh, right. Didn't actually specify the last name within the media query. And the interminable wait for Webpack. Okay, cool. So squish down, get to a certain size, stay there. I mean, that looks ridiculous, but I don't know what we're going to do with that yet, so let's not worry about that, because we could... You could put it above, you could switch it so that it became like a cover so that you're willing to crop the image somewhat, but then people really love putting loads of the details of their image in, details of their event in an image, so it's pretty dangerous to crop that sometimes, but it would look cool if that just became like a de facto square, then just like crop to center or whatever the aspect ratio needed. So you've got a bunch of options, I think. This one will do for now because we're just trying to get there. And that now exists as a component that contains this 3 bits of information we needed and we can then just pop that on any step of the order process as we saw earlier. So it's here on the your details thing, and then it's also as you get to the next one. Oh, as you goes to the left on the next one. Oh, interesting. So that doesn't matter. That would still work exactly the same. It would just it's the page layout that would have changed. Okay, so it looks rough, but sort of works. Let's just go and quickly look at that date format. So 19th of May, blah, blah, blah. Is there a bunch of built-in date formats within Rails that I keep forgetting? So Rails date formats. So now you can set your own ones up. So I don't mean like this, where you can specify string from time. I mean like there's like shortcuts. Yeah, like 2s blah blah blah. That's what I'm talking about. Is there any built-in ones? Yes, there is. Okay, let me make this bigger. So these are all... These all have times. I only want them... Is that because they're date time? Where's the date ones? Oh no, of course starts at is a time. No, I do want that. Okay, great. So... Date time formats for predefined formats. The method is alias to 2s. And what do I want? This is the one at 19th of May. Oh, I don't want any of these ones. Actually, the day of the week would be pretty helpful. Maybe this one, but without the time zone. Let's just put this one in for now. So this could be, go back to our component, starts at, I mean that really does what it says on the tin, but let's build that out to be a bit nicer. I think we probably do want the day of the week in here, so let's do some fun things. We're gonna build out some helpful stuff. So what did it say about doing? Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah, so this is so config initialize time formats. This, let's just do the same thing. Config. No, that's assets config. So config initializers time formats. Date time formats, time formats, date formats. It's called time date formats. So I feel like in the future I'm going to look for that file, really find the word date useful to find. And this is going to be default. Okay, now we've got to work out that lovely all of the formatting things that you have in Rails, in Ruby date stuff to get you the one you need. So we want Ruby date time formatting. I'm going to have to work backwards to work out what we actually want. Build a little string of what we're looking for. So there are some there's like default ones in here, aren't there? Like helpful templates. I thought I remembered people adding really helpful little templates. All right, so we want what? Day of the week, comma, number, month, year. Let's do day of the week. Week, day, this. So that, comma, space. Then we want, I think we want the day of the month 0 padded. Yep. But I think we want a space, not a dot. And then M is the number, whereas I think we want the month. Abbreviated like this. And we do want the year. Yep, so that's 19 May 2022. And then time in AM PM. So comma again? Maybe not, maybe just a space for the time. So that's AM PM, and then here we want the time. Is there a helper to give you both, or do you just do it yourself? We want hour of the day, blank padded, dot, minute of the hour, spaces like that, I think. All right, does that give us what we want? It does. Oh, we got to restart the server because we added a config. Sunday, 6th of maybe the 0 padding. I think actually having like, I think having it without the 0 padding is probably clearer. So day of, where's day of month? Blank padded, so that's probably an E. I'll bump some of these fonts, default font sizes up. So Sunday, 6th of March 2022, 10:57 a.m. Yeah, that feels nice. And then you have a bunch of logic there, which would be like, need to show the ends at date as well. And then I've built one of these before where it's like, okay, well, if they're on the same day, you don't need to put the date twice. You can just put dash start time, end time. But if they're on different days, you do want the different dates and the end times. You can build like a nice little bit of UI stuff there. And potentially, I don't know if we've done a lot of component testing so far, have we? Yeah, okay. Yeah, something like that. So I was going to say, like, you might want to test that the date was always coming out in the expected format because that's really important to our UI. Whereas, like, we don't just care that it's showing the date. We care that that date is actually in a really specific type of format. And you could sort of say, well, you could test it against, like, did it call that method with that, like that name of the custom date time type? But you could also say, no, did this string value come out? And if you change that default thing, say like, I'm willing to bear the cost of having to update all of the tests as well, because that's so key to a date application where it's like, I want to guard against that being changed accidentally. So what do I mean by that? Let's say here that we have, let's close this. Event. Oh, I can't remember how to test these at all, so just lifting all of that. So we're going to have events. That can all go. So we've got new, and we have got some stuff to initialize it. That needs to respond to something, I think. But I can't remember what. But let's just block it and put it out. And then this could be... So this is the thing we're actually going to be testing for, so we can actually put this in a let as well, just to make it a bit clearer. I think, I'm not sure you need that. I think you can just do that. There is no context, it should display the start time as a, no, it displays the start time as a formatted. Sure, that displays my start time. And then how do you actually check these tests? What do you get, like render inline subject and then expect to have spec? I'm gonna get that as well. I think we can do have content, and it should be something. We don't really care what it is. We're just going to watch this fail because I think this is going to fail for multiple reasons. Representable. We should copy and paste that because I am not. Oh, is it actually calling a blob, or is blob the thing we pass in? I can't remember. Let's see what that does. Seeing what fails here. Representation. Just seeing if I can just mock stuff. Just to get this to work. I don't really know what that thing is calling. I just want to stub that really. I don't really care that that calls. So can I sort of do like oh no. And what is it actually receiving? Representation? I don't really need it to return anything. Can I just do that? Wait, what? Oh. Typo. I got very confused then. So what? Is it still coming from here? Because can I just put and return true? I just sort of want to get around this. Can I stub out the image tag altogether? What does representation return? Can I put and Come on. Because it's going to try and, because image tag is going to try and build a thing for it. Like if I would just return a hash, will it just accept that as a blank thing? Can I put... Can I mock that all together? Just skimming through these Stack Overflow things, I'll take a look and see if I can... Because I can pass it a real thing, I guess. Like I could set it to that value. What I'm only saying is use, like I've got some stuff in fixtures images 100. I guess we could do that. But I'm sort of wondering, like, can I just not do it at all? Not sure the best way to do that, actually. How to start paperclip file paths. Here we go. Allow picture to receive picture file URL. Visit pictures. Okay, but it's image tag that's actually causing mine. Because I think it's that... It wants to build a URL for the image tag, which makes total sense. Okay, let's just think that through for a second. So action view template error, the asset. So that's correct. That's what is happening. So it's saying, hey, take your active storage thing, get representation, and get what you get back is the thing. And it passes that to image tag. What we are saying is we don't care about the image tag. We actually just want that to not do anything. And I don't know if we can stub that in any way. What is image tag? I know like it's just Rails magic. Rails image tag. This could we stub? Could we do this? Ugh, this doesn't feel great. Is image tag even a method on there? Like, how does this even work? Yeah, I think it's a method on there. Let's see if that fails. See how that fails. Doesn't feel great. Asset tag helper does not implement image tag. Okay. Yeah, I think we're sort of not in a good place when we're trying to do that anyway. Okay, this I might have started knocking this on the head, but I didn't get us to the simple form templating stuff, which I was hoping to take a look at. Okay. Right, because they're actually instance methods, but I don't know how we end up with an instance of it Rails somehow, because that's not a class method. Okay, fine. There is some sort of I'll put okay. So instead you could say like what were the other ones suggesting? They were actually saying do the actual file path. So like we're using that somewhere already. What do we call this? If we have like 100.jpg. Does this get us the same thing? Mm-hmm. It does. Okay, so we can actually pass it. So you could even have this set, I'm guessing. And you could set that as true. So representable is true, and then representation. That, and you could actually specify, so then you could actually just specify everything in the doubles. Wow, okay, maybe that. Don't know if that's a good idea or not. And then this is actually what we wanted. That's Wednesday the 20th of... Oh, we've got 2 spaces there. Do we want 2 spaces? Why have we got 2 spaces? Where's our datetime format? Have got 2 spaces there, which we don't want. Great. See, testing works. Spot your typos. So we only want 1 space. Okay, so does the test now pass? Great. So we now know that by passing this stuff in, the start time will always be formatted in the way that we want. And we've hard-coded that to a string because this could also have been like allow... you could pass something in at event starts at and then say like, did it receive... You could pass the whole event in and say like, did it receive it with this or expect... I can't remember how we did this. Expect... Event starts at to receive 2s, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, expect this to receive 2s with the right thing. But I think it's good that we're doing that here. So let's add this event summary components test. Oh, well, actually, you would do this one first. So here we're going to do, let's do it properly. So we can see. So we're going to commit the new datetime formatting thing. Add new datetime formatting. To using standardized date/time formats across the site. This commit, we're adding an initial format as the default event format. Cool. Now that we've got that in the site, we can then put everything with our component in. Introduce in our initial designs for the order flow that is a consistent should put UI element at the top of the page, the summary of the information. This commit introduces a new component to represent that information. I think the naming here is probably too generic. This will likely end up wanting to summarize event information in lots of different formats. This gets us underway. Again, we're just explaining in our commit message that we don't think we've got something right here. Whereas you might want to put in, hey, we've don't change something in the future because we think there's a good reason to keep it the same. Whereas here we're saying, no, if you're in git blame and you're reading this commit message, you can take it as read that we haven't made any firm decisions here. And then we can just do a final commit here. That is add summary component to new order page. In the previous commit, we introduced a new component to show information in the order flow. This commit adds the component to the only existing order flow page, and that's it. It's not a lot of Y in that one, just saying that one's pretty perfunctory. All right, cool. I have to go because I've got to go and get ready for my holiday tomorrow because I'm away. So a reminder, like I said at the start of the stream, no streaming next week because I will be away. But we can hopefully get into like simple form stuff. And then when as I said, when I get back, I do really want to get into removing Webpack and moving to some of the new build stuff within Rails. But what we've done last stream and this stream is sort of get from having no formatting at all to having this framework of view components and CSS stuff, where we can now more quickly just like build out pages, and then we'll be able to reuse some of this stuff. So although it's really rough around the edges, it's got like lines around it and stuff, just so that we can see our components. You can see that once you get rolling and build these reusable things, it's a bit slow to get started, but then you're really off to the races. Like once we get our form fields formatted by default, suddenly throwing forms together gets way more fun. Buttons and all these reusable components suddenly start to get built. So you can see we actually have, like a pretty fun process. So what we'll do is we'll get, if I put in some test information in here, we'll get this page here, this thank you page formatted using that same layout as we're using for the event page because we use the same things. So if I zoom right out, you can see it's this one here. So we already have this idea of a page with this kind of cover image behind it. And we'll get that built out as well. And so we'll have our MVP order process done, and it creates an order in the system. And so you can then go through here and see your orders. And then here's your order number that's just been made, which is very exciting. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for people who dropped into the chat. And for anyone who reaches out afterwards. Like I said, I'll speak to Sam about doing some pairing on the channel when I get back off holiday, and I will see you if I don't see you before, I'll see you in 2 weeks because there is no stream next week. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Have, just a great 2 weeks. See you later.